We are PG. We are PG here.
Sometimes.
13,
For the most part.
maybe.
Depends on depends on how angry our teams make us.
I would say, yeah, that's fair. I would say PG-13 at best.
There we go. That's better.
Or sorry, at worst maybe.
Yeah. It depends on how family friendly our Patreon people want to be in terms of letting Zach eat in over 2 months now.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
I'm surprised that you're still kicking. I mean, you really only need water.
Yeah.
It's a
To kind of
crazy
survive,
thing, that
but-
water.
Yeah.
Water is literally the sustenance of life.
Yeah. It's what we're made of. Literally, we are. What are we? 70%ish water, something like that.
Yeah, sounds right. We're basically the Earth, because like the Earth is also like 75% water. So
Yeah.
I'm like 80% God, but it's okay.
good to know. And with that, legitimately though, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sportsball Podcast, your number one source for sports and your number one ranked podcast in the world. Reminder, do not fact check us.
Please
I
don't.
am your host. Yeah, well, if you do, you might find some sad info, but it's true. Just trust us. I'm your host, Zach, joined by my co-host, Andy. And once again, Nate decided he was gone, so we brought back a fan favorite, we assume, because it seems like he brings in the views.
Damn
My brother,
straight.
Jett.
Nate,
Welcome back to the club.
What up?
Nate's
Happy to be
doing that
back.
weird thing where like he's actually taking like personal time or something like that. Like I don't really know what you
Yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah, turns out
Had to
being in New
celebrate that
Zealand is...
Nebraska win. Yeah.
He did. He happened to be traveling during most of it, if not all of it. But
Planned ahead.
he planned ahead. He was like, "We're gonna win anyways. I'm gonna book it now and just schedule it as the bowl victory getaway trip."
Based on
Exactly.
his conversation that he had with us, I don't think he planned ahead very well. I think they booked that ticket that day. So technically, yes, that was ahead. But most people buy plane tickets like months in advance. Not always. I know there's some like travel TikToker or travel blogger out there that's like, actually, cool. I don't know those tips, so you go ahead and do your thing. But I think that's absolutely bonkers. But anyway, we're not here to talk about flights. We are here to talk about, that's right, sports. And what better sport to start with, generally speaking, than it would be MLB, but unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, MLB is just kind of pretty quiet at the moment. There's been some signings, but nothing huge, nothing market shaking. So if you're here for the MLB segment, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's a bunch of free agency
Deuces.
stuff right now that unless it impacts your team directly, I mean, it's kind of it is what it is until we get through spring training, I guess.
We'll probably kind of leave, unless there's some big shakeups, we'll probably just leave MLB off the cards for a while and then just like do like a preseason recap for us and kind of catch up on the news.
Mhm.
Once we get towards the spring, we're actually, now it's also Happy New Year to every listener as well. I know we forgot to say that. Welcome to 2025. So I guess we'll move real quickly then. I think this will also be a fairly short segment to the NHL. And I'll start because the Predators still stink, but they stink a little bit less than they did a while back. They are no longer the worst team in the NHL, although there could be an argument made for it. They did do some shakeups. They made some trades, but I'm going to be honest, I'm still not good enough with if they're good trades or bad. So we'll see. But yeah, Predators still stink. NHL still NHL. And stick pucking. So I'll pass it to you guys.
Yeah, with the Avalanche, like I said, after they kind of figured out their goalie situation, they've really turned it around in terms of being able to win games now. So they are now third in the Central. Winnipeg Jets team that he'll talk about maybe in a second. Depends on how much he wants to gloat about how glorious their first place position is. I will say the Avalanche did beat the Jets the other night, so They got that going for them. They're on a 5-game win streak right now, 8-2 in their last 10 games. So I'd say it's a pretty good mark of trying to turn around, and that kind of happened during the whole goalie change, the last 10-ish games or so. So they're starting to finally figure that out. Like I said all along, you can have the top 3 points leader in the NHL, but if you're giving up more goals than you're scoring them, obviously you're not going to win a lot of games. So they made that switch that has helped them. It's kept them in a lot of games. So yeah, they're figuring it out. Hockey's kind of going to be the same talk almost every time that we talk, is just in the middle of the grind of the season right now. And we'll get through, and eventually we'll start talking about playoffs. And I don't even know what that is. April? It seems so far away. And
That's the crazy thing, is that we're
it
still
seems so close.
It's still in April. Like, they're not even technically half done with the season yet.
No,
which is crazy.
no.
So,
but yeah, they're picking it up when they needed to. So it's just going to be, can they keep humming along? Can they keep chugging and try to get one of those first 3 guaranteed spots at the end of the season and their division, conference, whatever you want to call it, to get a grip hold on playoffs and not leave it up to the wild card seeding. So with that, Jett, if you want to talk about your Winnipeg leading Jets in the Western standings and in the Western Conference as well. And then actually, I think they lead the whole league, to be quite honest with you.
It looks like they do. Not much to say. We kicking ass. We doing the thing. We're winning. 27-11. Hell yeah. I'm gonna be honest right now, though. I haven't watched a game. I pretty much
working.
keep up with the games.
You're taking the Nate strategy.
Hey.
You're not watching your hockey team.
Yep,
and it seems to be working out.
It's pretty easy to do that. I tell you what. I get the ESPN like score by score updates, so that's about as much, I don't know, information I need. And It looks like we're winning, so not much else to be said. Go Jets.
Go Jets.
Short, sweet, and to the point. I like
Damn
that.
straight.
And you know what will be nice, because I know Nate's not here, but we'll have to continue to be reminded that somehow the Wild are still a wagon. Although
he hasn't been overly concerned about the wagon falling off when he talks to us about it. So,
well,
I'm
guessing
fine.
not watching kind of helps with that.
Yeah. He doesn't have to be too concerned about that wagon.
Although Vegas did overtake them just by a point. And I guess maybe just by a single win, but Minnesota continues to still be doing well. So Minnesota might be that I don't know if we call them dark horse at this point, if they're, third in the West or in the West, but they weren't necessarily quite there last year, and all of a sudden they're putting things together. But again, like I said about a minute ago or 2 minutes ago, it's still not even halfway through the season quite yet. So I mean, we're right there on that edge, but it's crazy. So we got a lot of time and the Wild could absolutely fall apart. Let's hope that doesn't happen for Nate's sake, because that might not be fun. So with that, I say let's move on to, actually, you know what? I'm going to give it to Andy, who's going to talk about NCAA basketball. Because you're the Nebraska NCAA basketball, and I haven't watched much of anything. So
I can talk to you a lot more about general Nebraska ball than I can about the overall college basketball landscape right now. Just more or less because I pay more attention to Nebraska basketball than I do, like I said, the overall college basketball landscape. So I do believe the last time that we had talked, we were getting ready to play Indiana at home. That was coming off the shellacking that they had against Michigan State on the road by less than 40 points, but still got blown out by 30 plus. So they were reeling through that. They come back home to Pinnacle Bank Arena against Indiana, a 2 or 3 loss team Indiana at the time. And it's Indiana wasn't great last year. They're definitely better this year. First half was a little shaky for them, and then they absolutely turned it on in the second half. I think they only let up 2 Indiana points in the last 6.5 minutes of game time, which seems pretty good for trying to win a game. Is when you hold a team to literally 2 points in the last 6 minutes and 30 seconds of a game. And that time, I think Nebraska went on, a 15-point run to seal the game. So, yeah, they turned it on at home. They still have not lost a conference home game since dating back to last year. So I think they're like an 11 or 12 game conference home winning streak right now. So
Nice.
quite good, especially, if we remember last year, you had Purdue and Wisconsin that came into town. You had swept them both at home. So really, really good start there. Then they went to Hawaii over the holidays to the Diamond Head Classic tournament, which at the time when Nebraska did commit to it, I think Fred Hoiberg had reasonably assumed that like they'd have maybe a couple more Power Four teams that were going to commit to playing in it. Obviously it's not Maui. If you're going to go to any Hawaii tournament, it's Maui. But this is a good consolation too to get away from cold December Nebraska to go spend 5 days in Hawaii playing basketball. So I don't think the players were, probably upset about having to go to Hawaii to play basketball at the same time. But really the only, impactful game that Nebraska could have got in terms of building resume was who they played in the championship, Oregon State. Just a quad one neutral site type game. I think it's actually a quad two now, but either way, that was going to be your best matchup for trying to win a in-season tournament and build your NCAA tournament resume. But yeah, Nebraska went through, swept the entire tournament. It's their first in-season tournament win since I believe 2000. When I don't know what they won back then, but yeah, it's a good victory mark for the program for Fred. Definitely Bryce Williams is your go-to guy this year. I think that entire tournament he probably averaged 22, 23 points, something like that. So he's your go-to guy. He's obviously going to be your go-to guy this entire season going forward, and teams are probably going to pick up on that. And then Nebraska came back home, played Southern, won by 30 plus with that. So big game this Saturday. Number 15 UCLA is coming into town, the PBA. So I think Nebraska's favored by a point, mostly because of one, how they're playing, two, playing at PBA right now the past year and a half has been extremely tough for opponents to come in and try to do. So I think that's why Nebraska's favored against the ranked team at home. Nonetheless, it's going to be a tough game for them. They're going to have to lean on Bryce and Juwan to lead them and score all the points, basically, is what it comes down to. They have a lot of role players that they're still trying to figure out, like, if Bryce is out of the game or Juwan's out of the game, who's going to step up and take those shots and score the points while they're on the bench. Connor Sejan's been your 3-point shooter this year. He's essentially been lethal from downtown. Definitely picking up the missing piece of, what we thought last year. Once Casey graduates, who's going to be their, go-to 3-point shooter this year? They went out and got a Sejan from Wisconsin, and he is not disappointed at all. Burke Buchengel is picking up his production, I should say. He's definitely gotten better every time he goes in the game. He's he's a lengthy guy that can make turnaround jumpers like Dirk, but it's, he's still got the athleticism part to work out like that. But when he does hit those turnaround jumpers, it's, it's literally like watching Dirk shoot his turnaround fadeaway shots. So he's got that going for him. But nonetheless, they've got, every Big Ten conference game from here on out is going to be a grind and a halt, whether they're at home or away. Just the Big Ten's a little bit reasonably better this year in basketball in terms of conference building, resume building, everything like that. But like I said, they got number 15 UCLA at home this Saturday, and then you go on the road to Iowa and Purdue. Iowa was ranked until they lost, I think, a couple days ago. So that's why they're not ranked anymore. But nonetheless, Iowa's still a dangerous team. And obviously, even though Purdue does not have Zach Edey anymore, you're still going to Purdue against Matt Painter and, a program that had has had fairly reasonably large success. I mean, they went to the championship last year, so albeit that was a lot to do with Zach Edey playing for Purdue, but nonetheless, they've got a couple hard stretch of games coming up here before they come back home and play Rutgers next, I guess, in a week and a half. So, nonetheless, it's been fun watching the team, and I think this team might be better than it was last year, just in terms of production of how they play defense. And Fred Hoiberg has really accustomed himself. If you go back to what he did at Iowa State and what he did in Chicago, Fred was definitely more of a run and gun type offense, get out, transition ball, all of that. Since he's come here to Nebraska, he's had to change his motto a lot to, get away from that and start doing more of a defensive game, man. It certainly has paid off for Nebraska this year, focusing on defense first, and then, letting Bryce and Jawan and Braxton Maya, Andrew Morgan, Buchan Jail, be your role guys and get you your points on the offensive end. So, yeah, I know you guys haven't watched as much of basketball, but I definitely would encourage you. I say that now, and they're probably going to get stomped on Saturday, but.
Well, hopefully
but either way, I mean,
holidays slowing down, maybe we'll be able to now.
Yeah,
maybe we'll be able to focus on it.
Obviously, your conference games are super important now. Nebraska got through all of their non-conference games. Just the one loss to St. Mary's, which they theoretically probably should have won, if they had not gotten off to a slow start. But they go on the road, beat Creighton. You win your in-season tournament. So all in all, they got through non-conference pretty unscathed. They avoided the horrible bad losses in non-conference play. Like I said, the Michigan State loss is really bad, and of how much they got beat by. But Michigan State is also 11-2 and 2-0 in the conference and number 15 in the country. So it's not a resume bad loss. It's just they got shellacked while doing it. But either way, just a lot of resume building games coming up the rest of the Big Ten slate. So this is their chance. I've always said 20, at least 20 wins, 21 wins total gets you in that conversation for bubble teams for the tournament. So they're already at 11, so you're theoretically obviously looking at 9-10 more wins plus maybe a conference tournament win going in there, just to kind of help pad and boost your resume, so you don't leave it up to chance when it comes to tournament selection time. So it's gonna be a fun winter going forward in terms of just watching this team. Like I said, I think they are better than they were last year. Definitely on defense, they're a lot better. Some games they just start off slow offensively and then they pick it up. So that might be the recipe for the rest of the year, but as long as the defense is there, it's going to keep them in a lot of games. And I think eventually, Bryce is just going to take over and win you the games when you need to win them. So my pitch to everybody, not just these two listening, but to everybody, if you are not a Nebraska ball fan, I highly encourage you just to check out any one of their games. They're a lot of fun to watch, at least. But I'm biased about it, so.
Well, fun fact though about Nebraska basketball, real quick. I was just looking at the rankings because I was going to go through just a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I scrolled down, and so in the others receiving votes category, Nebraska and the AP poll has one.
Mm-hmm.
So someone out there is like, they should be ranked.
It might be the Nebraska AP voter, but
that's fine with me. Somebody believes it. I guess, yeah, I didn't realize Tennessee was as good as they were until I saw they ranked one. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess they're good.
Again, outside of obviously Nebraska and probably Big East, just because I do follow Creighton too. I really don't know much about any other conferences that are not the Big Ten or Big East in terms of basketball right now. So
is Creighton unranked?
Yes, but they have not had a great start to the year. Obviously, it kind of started to tailspin once we beat them, because then they went to that NIL tournament thingy out in Vegas or whatever, and they played NCAA tournament type caliber teams and only beat one out of 3 of them. I mean, they did get the upset at home against Kansas, but just they kind of went on that skid for a little bit, trying to figure out their identity, and they picked it up. I mean, they've won 2 games in a row. They got shellacked by Georgetown, which Georgetown is actually a lot better than they were, in the previous years. But either way, Creighton has a big matchup tomorrow night too. They play at Marquette, number 8 Marquette, nonetheless. So that might be a good gauge stick of how they've done so far. But yeah, in terms of Nebraska, Nebraska needs Creighton to keep winning just to keep their win against them a quad 1 win and not dip it down to a quad 2. So
I'm sure they'll come around though too.
Yeah,
Creighton's not necessarily known for doing that poorly.
No, they'll be fine. But obviously, if you're a true Nebraska ball fan, you're like, why would you ever cheer for Creighton? I'm like, well, you conference record cheer just to help for Nebraska. That's really about.
It's a red state, buddy.
It is.
On.
I mean, we did beat them, so it is a red state for. It's a red state for this year. But yeah,
let's go.
That's really all I have for the college basketball aspect, just because I don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unfortunately,
I don't follow the national part.
I'm not keeping up on it, unfortunately. So
no,
I've not watched a game.
No.
Someday we'll get better. I guess this is kind of notable because it's college basketball, but it kind of ties in with NBA. LeBron's younger son, Bryce,
committed to
Arizona.
Ooh.
So neat. Yeah. And then
he'll be better than Bronny for sure.
There was that slim hope when USC joined the Big Ten that if Bronny had stayed in college for another year, that Nebraska could be playing Bronny James this year. But obviously, we know that he went to the NBA. But
he did.
Just a year too late for Nebraska to be matched up against USC in basketball. But it is what it is. Yeah.
Darn the luck.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the NBA.
I mean, I can start again, but I'll let you guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Okay, I was gonna say. The Suns are falling apart at the seams. I don't know, man. Like, it's one of those where I'm watching from a distance still. I'm just kind of keeping up on the news, kind of tuning in on the scores and tuning in where I can. But they just don't look like a good team. And I kind of knew that just because there's a lot of. It turns out the Bradley Beal and Devin Booker experiment isn't working as intended, and I think the idea was solid, but it's not
going great.
Well, they're essentially 2 of the same kind of player, which is not what you need, at least. And they're trying to find the correct rotation still, or it seems like they're trying to, and it's just they're not good. And there's rumors that they're trying to offload Beal to the Heat. Well, that died down a while back now, and I mean, I guess there's still a chance anything can happen, but we'll see. I'm doubting it. And now apparently there's rumors that they're going to trade Devin Booker, and I'm like, well, what the hell are we doing? So yeah, being a Suns fan right now is pain. I don't know if that's true. That one, I was reading about it. Apparently he's the guy that there was a guy that tweeted that out. I couldn't imagine. Dude's been at the Suns for 10 years and has basically, he's like, I want to be here. If you trade him, it's like, you're going to lose so many fans. Like, yeah, we might suck this year and we might be stuck with Kevin Durant, who arguably is still playing good ball when he's not hurt.
Right.
Which lately he's been fine, I guess, but it's just like, it's rough being a Suns fan, but for different reasons. 5-6 years ago when they were terrible, it was like, well, they're terrible. Like, there's a lot wrong. And then that miraculous run into the finals. It just, ever since then, I feel like they've been trying to chase that, which I understand every team's trying to get to the NBA finals. Duh.
Right.
They're trying to chase that same dragon, but it just, I think they made too many big money moves not necessarily in the wrong direction, but in the direction that they thought was good and it's not working, and now it seems like they almost have to blow everything up. But I don't know. It's just the Suns are kind of in a downward spiral, as definitely noted by losing to the Mavericks, who didn't have anybody but basically Kyrie.
Yeah, because
And
Luke is
like
out for probably like what, a month or so.
something like that. He didn't
Yeah.
play regardless, and it's just like the Suns had everybody. I think they had Beal and Booker, and they just I don't. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know if it's coaching. I mean, I'm sure that's some of it, but new coach, there's a lot that goes into, getting that system to work, the new coach's system to work, especially after coming off of a 1-year coach with Frank. I don't know. It's not fun to watch or even keep up with. But now all the different little rumors and stuff that are coming out, I think that's just, I don't know. We could be seeing a real different Suns team in a year or two, and maybe not necessarily for the better. So
Right.
we'll see. Suns are gonna Sun, I guess. Phoenix Sports are gonna Phoenix Sports. So that's the Suns update. Jett, I don't know. You got any NBA hot takes? Any NBA info?
No really hot takes. I mean, I'm a Bucks fan because I just like Damian Lillard, and I'm checking out their record because I have not been keeping up with it. But they're 17-14.
You guys won the NBA Cup, though.
Damn right we did. I knew that.
There you
go. Damn right we did. The one thing I will say about NBA this year, though, the Cavs and the damn Thunder, they're fun to watch. Celtics even are fun to watch too. It'll be on some nights when I get home, and just those are the teams that look like they know what they're doing. But I can't say anything for the Bucks personally, just because I haven't seen a game. I don't know how we're playing. Apparently, in the last 10, we're 6-4. Cool. That's awesome. But like, I don't know. NBA, I will definitely get more into it when playoffs come into the picture, or at least get closer. But until
I won't have to worry about it this year. So
yeah, I mean, sorry
at the rate they're going.
At least you're not like Pelicans, though. I mean, that's
here's the thing. Here's the problem. Like, yeah, the Pelicans are bad, but if they get there's the stupid lottery system, which I've gone on a rant about. But on the flip side of that, like, they still could have a pretty high pick, which could, not necessarily that they're going to draft another Zion Williamson, who honestly hasn't even really played.
Yeah,
hardly at all. But they could draft somebody that does make that change in the team. Not necessarily that they're going to win the finals next year with that player, but could be the difference maker. So the Suns are just right now, they're good enough to win games, but also bad enough to just stay middling, to where it's like they could get a difference maker, but it's not going to happen at pick. It's not likely to happen at pick 20. Granted, drafts are always a crapshoot anyway, but anyway, moving on. Continue, Jett. Sorry.
That's pretty much all I had. Kind of like NCAA basketball. I need to start watching it. So yeah, I ain't got much else to say really.
Yeah, with the Thunder,
Andy gets to talk about his amazing team now.
Their 13-game winning streak, because they just won tonight. They technically do have a loss in there if you do count the NBA Cup, but that game doesn't account towards stats, records, anything like that. So minus the NBA Cup, they are on an actual 13-game winning streak. But I mean, if you count the cup, it is what it is. But yeah, they are they're good. There's no tiptoeing around that. It is, I think their record is 16-1 since Isaiah Hartenstein was active to play. So if that doesn't tell you that how big that trade and free agency signing in the offseason was for the Thunder to get a big man, especially since Jett is still out and probably will be out through, my guess is, most of the month. He's off crutches, so that's a good sign. I think Mark Dadenall, their coach, said he's starting to do some warm-up drills, trying to get back. So hopefully by the end of the month he might make his return. But they haven't really needed Jett in this time, and when they do get him back, it's just going to be another piece to throw in for offense and to throw in another big man with Isaiah. So they're fun. Obviously, I'm very biased and enjoy watching them play a lot. I know Nate doesn't necessarily agree with me for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for MVP talk, but I think he does.
But
That's
he's
just
not here to defend himself, so
He's
it
not.
doesn't matter.
And the first polls, or I guess the first I don't know if they're fan votes or if they're just votes. I assume they're fan votes. But the first fan votes came out for All-Star. I know All-Star picks, or was it MVP picks? One or the other. Shai was at the top of that list. I think it's MVP talk. Or it might be No, it's All-Star. It's definitely All-Star. But yeah, the first van votes came out for the All-Stars and everything, at least in terms of leading the votes and everything. And Shai is number one at the top of the Western Conference. So yeah, he's God, I don't even know how much he's averaging a night, but it seems like he's averaging 40 a night. He's okay. He's averaging 30 a night. Only a minor detail difference, but yeah, they're fun to watch. I mean, they're fun. Their defense is incredible. I mean, they make you work for all of your offense. I think the most points they've given up on this winning streak is 114 to the Pacers. Outside of that, they usually keep every other team right at 100 or under 100 points each night, which in the NBA, I mean, obviously you think that's a lot of points, but in the NBA, if you don't eclipse the 100-point mark, you usually lose a lot of games. And the Thunder are really, really, really good at letting you not score 100 points every night. So yeah, it's fun. Alex has been hurt the past couple of games. Just with his incredible aggressive old nature where he dives for balls. He loves to land on his hip that he keeps re-injuring. So he's been out with just a hip strain. He'll probably be back in the next couple of games if I were to imagine. But
Confirmed old man over there.
he is. He is the oldest guy on the Thunder, as I've mentioned before. And it's okay that if he has hip injuries because they call him. I mean, if you look at interviews with his teammates, they definitely call him an old man. So it is confirmed that he is an old man because his teammates do it. So he'll be back in the next couple of games. I mean, it's obviously Alex is not known for his offense. He's just the added defensive piece to that Thunder puzzle. So he'll be back. And the Thunder have some really. I mean, they have 4 tough games coming up now in this month of January. I mean, they've got the Knicks at home, the Celtics at home, and then they go to Cleveland and then go back to the Knicks. So those are 4 tough games in a row against the obviously top opponent teams in the East right now. So kind of a good preview matchup of how the Thunder are against the top teams in the East right now. Obviously with the reigning champs and the Celtics and Cleveland, who came out of nowhere this season. I think we're all kind of surprised of how good they have a better record by a game than OKC right now. So I'm a little surprised that they kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, these next 4 games are going to be fun to watch, but it'd be kind of a good litmus test for the Thunder of how do you stack up against the literal probably top 3 to 4 teams in the East right now. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with the Thunder and NBA right now. No major trades I don't think have happened. I don't even know when the trade deadline is for the NBA, but this is kind of the time of year where you're getting through the grind of the season. You'll probably start hearing more rumors of the trade deadline. So nothing major has happened yet of big name players, but if there is, this podcast will be the first to tell you.
That's right. It's
Or
also really tough. It's tough though with NHL and NBA and NCAA basketball for that matter. Just there's so many games throughout the week, and it's not that they're not important, but it's we're in the middle of the season. Nothing has really happened quite yet that's been huge. We're still getting through there. OKC's, coming out as being a top contender, obviously, and stuff like that. But, until we get closer to playoffs, we're not really seeing. Well, I guess the trade deadline would be the only other thing, but it's just where, like with football, it's once a week, so we have something to talk about, weekly. But
like I agree with you. That's just the grind of these seasons right now. It's just things. I mean, these games happen literally every single day. Not necessarily for our teams, but for the league as a whole, in terms of hockey and NBA. I mean, there's games literally every single night. So
yeah, good.
Whereas football, like you have your set days once a week that they happen, and that's it. Which is easier to talk about those.
Speaking of, we're going to move over to football now and start with the NFL, because obviously, as we're all Husker fans here, I feel like we have to end the night on probably the most positive note, but that's coming later. So we'll start with NFL, and I'm going to pass it over to Jett first.
Oh, the Saints are out. No playoffs for us. We're done.
When did you figure that one out, Jett?
Found that out officially when the Falcons beat whoever they played. I didn't watch it. Falcons down. I don't know how you do that. It's not horns down, but same.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Falcons down.
I'll take it, but Saints are out. The one positive is we got Dennis Allen the fuck out of New Orleans. He can stay gone. And we got old Rizzy. Rizzy stepped up and actually did a really good job. Players apparently loved him. I think maybe because we actually won a couple games with him. Maybe. I don't know. But I thought we played well. But once Dennis Allen left, the season started getting better. Funny enough, but now it's over. Like, I'm not watching it anymore. Like, what's the point type of deal? But I'm not even really cheering on a team. As long as it's not the Chiefs, I'll be happy. That
seems
fair.
now.
Same.
That's all I want.
That seems fair. All right, Andy, your turn.
So, for I guess the past couple of weeks, been just more of whittling down the playoff teams, so to speak. With that, so I think last time we talked was after week 16, I believe.
Or it was before you guys played the Chargers.
Oh, goodness.
Like we recorded, and then the week after, I think, was when you guys played the Chargers.
So getting to week 16 is what we...
I think so.
Yeah, so... a lot to catch up with that. Denver... No, I'll get to Denver in a second. Anyways, what we officially know now is I think there's definitely one AFC spot left open, and is there one NFC spot, Zach? I believe
that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to find it, but that sounds right. Yeah.
There's officially one.
Because they'll find out officially between Detroit and Minnesota, won't they?
Yes.
I mean, that's for the one seed.
I mean, for the one seed, but there's like one playoff spot left in each. So to recap, the AFC right now, you have the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans, Steelers, and Chargers that have all locked up bids. And then the AFC, you have the Lions, Eagles, Rams, Vikings, Commanders, and Packers that have all locked up seat spots right now. That's 1 through 7 exactly how they are listed right now. Obviously, week 18, definitely on the NFC side. Sunday Night Football between Minnesota and Detroit's going to lock up the 1 seed. One's going to be a 1 seed, and one is going to be a 5 seed that goes on the road to play somebody in the NFC South. So congrats to whichever team loses that game. You get to go play a bye game against probably Tampa Bay would be my guess. Even though that's not a bye game because Baker's played really well despite not having any offensive receiving weapons anymore. Mike Evans has definitely helped with them. But yeah, that's where we're at right now with week 8. Yeah, going into week 18. You have the Saturday games now of the AFC North games, basically the Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. Ravens, if they lose, I mean, they're still in the playoffs, but then they're in jeopardy. I think they can fall to the 5 seed because then the Steelers, if the Steelers beat the Bengals, those basically flip. And so, I mean, that'd be kind of a little fun chaos of seeding that Pittsburgh would be a 3 seed. But the Bengals need to win, and then they need to hope that Denver and Miami lose for the Bengals to get in the playoffs. Miami needs to win and hope that Denver and Cincinnati lose, and Denver just needs to win. If they win, they're in. If not, Denver can still get in if Miami and Cincinnati lose, but you don't want to leave that up to chance. So Saturday's game for the Bengals is basically going to be whatever happens with them. They'll be watching the 2 games of Miami and Denver that are happening at the exact same time, 3:30 on Sunday, which is on purpose so that neither team can know what is happening as the game goes on. So that's really, I mean, besides Minnesota, Detroit, I'm biased in saying that my game's also a big game on Sunday, albeit it is against the Chiefs, who are resting all their starters. And that's why Denver is like a 9.5 to 10-point favorite right now. 1, because it's at home, but 2, because literally Kansas City is likely sitting everybody that they're going to start. So that's why Denver's favored right now. Denver should win the game. I'm not saying that because they're biased, but most likely because they are going to be playing the Chiefs backups. And if they can't beat the Chiefs backups, then yes, Denver does not deserve, obviously, to go to the playoffs at all. But if they're going to let Carson Wentz beat them, I'm not going to have a fun offseason. I will tell you that much. But yeah, it's Denver's had 2 chances to get into the playoffs. Not been, like I had mentioned before the Chargers game. I mean, it's a tough road to close out the season when you play the Chargers, Cincinnati, and the Chiefs to end your season, needing one of those 3 games to win. Now, obviously, Cincinnati's defense has not been good, but you're still playing against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on offense, regardless of how good the Bengals record is. That's not been great this year. You're still playing. Joe Burrow is putting up MVP type numbers, and his team sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So
that poor guy and his defense.
Yeah.
God.
Denver obviously blew the Chargers game. They were up 21-10 and lost that one 27-34. They had their chances against Cincinnati. They did lose in OT. Both. If you watch unbiased both sides of that game, you would think that game probably should not have gone to overtime. Both teams had a chance to win the game, and they just kind of struggled at the end. But Cincinnati did pull out the win at the end. So all Denver needs to do is just beat the Chiefs backups on Sunday, and they're going to go to the playoffs for the first time since they won the Super Bowl, which has been since 2015. So they have either the second or third longest playoff drought streak right now. I think the Jets have the first in terms of the longest playoff drought. So it's been a miserable 8-9 years of trying to watch my team make it to the playoffs, and I'm hoping that this Sunday kind of breaks that curse. They're going to be wearing their 1977 throwback jerseys, so they'll be wearing that old school Denver D, the Orange Crush jerseys, the baby blue helmet. You're playing against the backups of Kansas City, so all the vibes are there at the moment for Denver to win this game. It's just, will they do it? I don't know. I mean, I hope they will. They're playing the backups, but it'll be kind of a test to see if Bo Nix is up for a big time pressure game like this. If Sean Payton's got the team mentally locked in, ready for a big time pressure game. Like I said, they've been 0-2 in potential playoff clinching spots so far. So are they going to strike out, or are they going to go 1 for 3? We're going to find out on Sunday. But yeah. Overall, that's kind of, that's it for Denver. It's just win and they're in. They'll likely match up against the Bills round 1 if they win, but I'll just be happy that they got to the playoffs. In a year that, like I said before the season started, I'd be happy they just ended with a winning record, and they will end with a winning record. So I'll still be happy about that, especially that this was supposed to be their rebuilding year. In terms of, they're playing a rookie quarterback. They've got like 2 rookie wide receivers they're playing. They're rotating rookie running backs in and out. So a lot of this was supposed to be just a rebuilding year on offense, and here they are a game away from the potentially being in the playoffs. So they're definitely ahead of schedule. Even if they lose round 1 of the playoffs, I'll still be very much happy that they got in and everything. So with that, Zach, the NFC side, like I had mentioned, the obviously Minnesota and Detroit's going to be the biggest Sunday night game, probably in quite some time, just for the 1 seed. But in terms of the rest of the NFC, Eagles are, I think they're solely squared into the 2nd seed, if I'm not mistaken, regardless of what happens on Sunday.
Yep.
But like I had mentioned off before we started recording, I'm a little upset. I know why Sirianni's resting Saquon. I get it. I totally get it. As a neutral fan, I'm a little hurt by it because I want to see him break the rushing record in his first year on a new team. But sounds like that Saquon's gonna get that rest before the playoffs, which he deserves because he's been
dude's been a workhorse. Yeah. So yeah, there's that. Obviously, that's kind of the big key thing that people are taking away from it is that Philly isn't worried about. I mean, they're not really worried about the game on Sunday against the Giants. They have the 2 seed locked in, so they're good with that. I'm good with that. It would have been cool to see Saquon get the rushing record, but it was funny too because Nick Sirianni wasn't the only one that made that call. Apparently, like I was reading some of the beat writer stuff, I think either today or yesterday, and they had said that the owner Jeff Lurie and Howie and all those guys, they all like had a discussion about it, and like the whole team talked about it. And so I'm just like, okay, so they all went back and forth on this discussion for long enough that it required to get a bunch of people involved to make it, and they all determined that being healthy for the playoffs is the way to go, which I like. I agree with it, like 89 or 90%, but it's like there's that 10% of me where it's like, man, it would have been cool to see him break the record. But, as cool as that would be, it's like, do you risk hurting not just Saquon, but do you risk, potentially getting your front, your offensive line hurt? Because they'd have to probably play 2 to give him those openings and whatnot.
Right.
So anyway,
and
besides
especially
that
if
point,
Jalen's, he should be out of concussion protocol by the time that the playoffs start. But if he were to happen to miss the first round and something happened to Saquon, in the final game of the season, I mean, you're down your 2 best offensive playmakers for the first round of the playoffs. So
yeah,
I get why too.
The good news is they would still have. Yeah, I think he's not out of concussion protocol yet, but I put quotes around that because I think yesterday they technically had just a walkthrough, which wasn't enough to deem if he was good or not. He was not. He was on the DMP list today, so he didn't practice. But I think again, this is one of those where it's like they're probably not going to play him. They were probably not going to play him anyway,
right?
Even though they probably should, just because he's been out for a game and a half now. More than that, almost 2 games essentially. So it'll be 3 almost when he doesn't play on Sunday. If he doesn't play on Sunday, I guess. Right. Anyway, I mean, the overarching idea is that they're keeping their guys healthy, and I agree with that as much as it pains me to not see him break the record. But good news is he's got a couple more years with the Eagles, so it should be fine from there.
Just do it again next year.
Just do it again next year. But yeah, like you can definitely tell that the Eagles are in Super Bowl or bust mode. I mean, admittedly, I thought they would play really well this year. I didn't expect it to, even with, so the last time we talked, they were going to play the Commies, I think, and they ended up losing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game. It wasn't fun for you, but it was fun to watch. I'll tell you that.
Well, it had its moments. I'll give it that. But the thing is like, and I know, what ifs and maybes and all that, but like if Jalen Hurts didn't go down hurt in that game, I have no doubt that the Eagles would walk. I mean, it would have been a tough game still regardless, but that game showed 100% how Jalen Hurts is essentially the linchpin to the offense. And I mean, he's playing really well this year, and I love to see it, but he's hurt and a concussion is nothing to mess with. So, but because of that, then after losing against the Commanders, then going to play the Cowboys, we had to wait for Kenny Pickett to essentially throw his shoulder out with Like
Dude, that
which
throw.
so when I first saw that throw, I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I went and I saw another angle of it, and apparently, like, he got hit on the arm. So, like, as he went to go throw, he got hit, and then somehow he held on to the ball, which
Mhm.
then caused all that forward momentum to just throw him onto the ground. It
Right.
looked goofy as hell. It did. No,
Right.
but like when you start seeing the other angles, you're like, "Oh, that makes more sense." And after people seeing that, they're like, "Oh, it's impressive he even held on to the dang thing." So
Dude, it was very
it
goofy.
just looked
It made
so
me
funny.
laugh.
And I had to see it on the internet because we were at a family event. So like I was just keeping up on my phone with the score. And that was the other thing. I was watching the first quarter. I was like, "Oh my God, it's 7-7. What's going on?" And then like they scored another
Then you blew
touchdown,
it
and
out of the
another,
water.
and then I was like, okay. But that was the other thing, is that we finally got to see a little bit of Tanner McKee for the Eagles, which
Yeah. I had to
I
look
don't
him
know.
up because
Yeah, right.
I saw him come in and I go, who is this guy?
But so granted, the Cowboys are still an NFL team, or at least could probably be argued to be one. But they I don't feel like watching Tanner McKee against the Cowboys is a totally fair assessment. And it's also only like one half of a game.
Not a good gauging
And
stick.
yeah, I mean, granted, he had some really, really good throws. I went back and kind of watched a quick recap just to see how he played, and he had some really good throws. Obviously, he looks like the third string quarterback. But there were times where I was like, yeah, no, he's probably definitely going to be second string next year. So either way, so then leading to that, they locked up the 2 seed with that going into the playoffs. As of right now, it sounds like the wild card is going to be probably against the Packers, who the Eagles beat the first game of the year for them. I think that was even the Thursday night game, that first Thursday night game, but whatever, doesn't truly matter. But
I do believe that the Packers can get to a 5 seed possibly.
that's
would have to look.
just the projection right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously it requires them to win on Sunday, and then I don't remember what else has to happen. Washington might have to lose too, but
Good.
I think there is a chance that they, well, not the 5, it'd be the 6 seed then. Yeah, because Detroit or Minnesota, one of them's getting the 1 seed, one of them's getting the 5 seed. And then the 4 seed will go to whoever wins the NFC South. So, I think the Packers can get up to a 6 if they win and the Washington loses. So, either way, you're going to play one of those 2 teams. What would be my guess?
Yeah. So, and again, I mean, if the Eagles keep playing the way they have, and if Jalen Hurts is back, which I'm sure he will be,
right? He should be.
And then with the guys coming off of rest, I think it's going to be. Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those games where it'll be a good game because it's a playoff game. It's going to be really good to watch, but I'm excited. I know Jett's team isn't in the playoffs. Andy, your team is fighting to get into the playoffs, and then mine is locked in. So I understand we're all kind of in different realms. So for me, I'm excited for the playoffs. I get it, but like it is exciting just because at the beginning of the year, the Eagles looked like the same team from last year, which was just like, I don't know. And then I guess that was just enough, and they were like, okay, yeah, we don't want to be this team anymore, and then went out and kicked ass. So you love to see it.
We could talk about how the Giants screwed themselves out of the number 1 pick.
Those guys.
I'm not entirely upset because I wanted Indianapolis to lose just to knock them out of the wild card playoff tiebreaker hunt in the AFC. Because that just would have been like one more team to add to Sunday for potential wild card bid if Indianapolis had won. But the Giants did win, screwed themselves out of a quarterback pick, and now falls to New England as the projected number 1 pick, which New England, if they do get it, they can probably just will hold on to that pick and shop around because they obviously don't need a quarterback with Drake May. So they might just hold on to that and just say, who's going to offer us the best package to get the number 1 pick?
I read a hot take the other day that I think would be hilarious. Supposedly, and I don't remember who wrote this, but supposedly the Patriots are thinking of taking the number 1 pick, getting Shadur Sanders, and then in a swap or some kind of thing somewhere, trading Drake May to somewhere else to get a higher pick to then get Travis Hunter. And I'm like,
That is a weird.
if
yeah.
any of that happens, I will be shocked. That would almost be hilarious, though.
I mean, the games that Drake May has played since he's come on, I know, albeit the rest of the Patriots offenses, but Drake has not looked that bad when he's played.
No,
in
he
New England.
hasn't. The thing is
better than I thought he would.
The problem is that they don't need a new quarterback, at least immediately. No. They need an offensive line so that he can do quarterback things.
Yes.
Strange how that works out. And trust me, I
not
know.
saying that they wouldn't, take the number 1 pick and hold on to it and draft the lineman, but if they do get it, I mean, they certainly will probably get calls and offers for the number 1 pick from probably, definitely the Giants, probably the Jets, probably the Raiders, maybe Cleveland, depending on what they want to do with Deshaun. They're probably going to get a lot of calls in terms of if they do end up with the number 1 pick after this weekend of games. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm very happy that the Raiders screwed themselves and keep winning too. It's just,
honestly,
going down the list.
Honestly, after this weekend, I think next week is going to be the episode to talk about the NFL because the playoffs will be set, and then we're into now it's go mode. So
correct. Speaking of playoffs, we can get to the quarterfinals of the college football playoff.
Good transition, Andy. We're getting good at this. It only took us like
only one.
It only took us like 2.5 years to actually figure out how to do this.
Only took us.
Which starting, I'm gonna say we should just start with how OSU is out for blood.
Dude, there's not a chance that I would have thought that Ohio State would have went in there and be up 34-8 at halftime against a team that beat them earlier in the year, a team that lost to a 6-6 Michigan team, or 6 whatever they were at the time. I no mind did I think that Ohio State would go in there and beat Oregon like they did. I know it was only a 20-point loss for Oregon, but that game was not as close as that score made.
20 points, which most of those were made up in garbage time for
Correct.
Oregon. Tell you what, I was so conflicted because I don't like OSU, like terribly, but I definitely don't like Oregon. And so watching Oregon lose, I'm like, this seems like a win to me.
Yeah. So. And there's obviously the bigger, broader debate talk that could be an off-season thing of, the number 1 team matches up against, the path of Ohio State of, how technically fair is that for seeding wise, yada, 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 whatever you want to call it. And I mean, there is some debate of how these teams are seeded and ranked that might be changed by next year. Just because, do you really want to put the number 1 overall team that went undefeated all of the year? Do you give them the hardest team to play in their first matchup of the playoff? That's neither here nor there. It happened. They got their butts kicked. We move on.
I'm not going to necessarily disagree with the idea that there is a debate there, but like, I remember watching the playoff, the playoff selection show, and I was like, they got this pretty well right. I thought, like, if you're like, this is the end of the season, these are the teams that we're putting in there. I thought they had it pretty well right.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't, like, looking at it now with hindsight, it's like, yeah, of course, like maybe that wasn't the best way to do it. But like at the time of release, when they said these are the 12 teams, I agreed with it. Now we're seeing that like Boise State probably was never going to be a Power 5 team, or like, sorry, was never going to keep up with that Power 5 team. But like,
they did make it kind of interesting, kind of.
But then, like, you can't say that as a blanket statement and then forget about ASU almost beating.
Should have won. They should have won.
They should have won. Yeah,
definitely should have won.
So it's like of course, the big discourse that's coming out of this now is, all the SEC teams. There's, it's like, but I mean, this is what we have the playoff for. In my head, like
That
this is
and
why we have it. So
all 4 conference champions are knocked out by the before the semifinals, which is incredibly hilarious.
as expected.
As expected. But yeah, the Texas Arizona State game was incredibly fun to watch. Just in terms of obviously we were all rooting against Texas, but just the fact that it was the back and forth. Arizona State was down 16 and came back to win the game, or not to tie the game. Could have won it, but targeting call, whether you believe that or not, neither here nor there. We got a doink, and we got overtime. I mean, it was everything that you probably could have wanted in a new format college football playoff type game of down 16 points, come back to tie the game. You get a doink to win, the possible field goal to win the game by Texas. That's a doink. Then you go to overtime. And then you get the emergence of Cam Scattaboo, who is definitely going to be high on a lot of draft boards, I think, this coming draft. Genty did not have his best game, but, I think if he gets drafted by the right team, some coach is going to really develop him because he can be a good running back in the NFL. And definitely Scattaboo. They were propped up on a national stage, so I'm sure a lot of NFL scouts were probably watching them as their games went on. So potential couple good running backs in the draft that I don't know if they're first rounders, but they're definitely going to be one of the first few running backs off the board come NFL draft time. Regardless, you get that. And then you had tonight's game of Notre Dame and Georgia, which, we're not going to talk the events that surrounded why that game got moved to Thursday because we are sports. We only stick to sports.
That's right.
And Georgia got their butts. I mean, they did try to come back, but Notre Dame handled a majority of that game. And now you have in the semifinals, you have 2 Big Ten teams. You have an independent, and then you have one SEC team. And it's a real possibility that it could be Ohio State and Penn State for the national championship, as expected.
As expected. as we all expected that. So
yeah. So I would give. Ohio State. Their last 2 playoff games. They have shown that they probably will win the national championship. If I had to pick any one of those 4, I'd probably pick Ohio State.
I think the funniest thing to me is that there exists a world in this scenario here somewhere where the talk of James Franklin not able to win the big game coming up against Ohio State just to then
who they lost to earlier in the season.
Who they lost to earlier just to do it there. And then he'd be like, well, at this rate.
He literally can't beat Ohio State no matter what type of stage game it is.
I think the national championship game would probably be his biggest test to do it.
Yeah.
But they got to get through Notre Dame first. And Notre Dame's been on a tear too. So
they looked impressive today. I know Georgia didn't have Carson back, but that, I wasn't really high on Georgia this season to begin with. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised that they lost, but SEC overrated is what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Correct. Jett, you got any hot takes for us?
Hot takes, no. This college football playoff's been pretty fun to watch, so nothing really new to say. You guys kind of hit all the points that I had. Arizona State was cool to watch. Cam played his heart out. He's a
Scattaboo's
dog.
such a football name too.
Great football guy. I was rooting for him, but came up short. I was glad to see Oregon down. I don't know. It's been fun. I kind of hope an independent team doesn't win it all, but if it happens, it happens. History's made, I guess. Awesome.
We're all witnessing history since this is the first time ever.
That's a good point, actually. But
I'm still just gonna say it. Yeah, I was gonna say as long as it's not Texas, I'm fine with horns down.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
That means rooting for Ohio State, but even if you don't root for Ohio State, they looked.
Hey, you're not
pretty
rooting for
impressive.
Ohio State at that point. You're rooting for the Big Ten. And so
Correct.
if it's two Big Ten teams, then it's like, you got the pick of the litter.
It is very much okay to conference cheer.
I will say this though, just in terms of the playoffs,
Mhm.
I still think, and I know I've said this before, 12 teams I think is where it should stay. I know it's probably going to move to 16, and then we're going to have this whole fucking stupid
Right.
debate later on. But yeah, I think 12 teams is like that perfect middle
Mhm.
ground. But
I mean, so far it's been working. It's been working well. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that if it does change is just how they're seated versus do you still consider automatic conference qualifiers? Do you add another group of 5 qualifier? How do you rank them? How do you seat them? So on and so forth. I mean, if they keep it 12, that is the part I think will change within the next couple of years. It's just how teams are seated, just based on do you give again. The Ohio State example is just perfect just because I mean you could have put like Clemson and Oregon's path or anything like that, but instead you give them Ohio State, who is obviously not a slump for one of the 12 playoff teams. So, or you give them SMU or Indiana in that situation or something like that, where you give the number 1 overall seed, and it's kind of like the NFL is, the number 1 overall seed plays the lowest remaining seed next round. So it's kind of like the same concept as, do you give the number 1 overall seed, an easier matchup in their first round? And I know they technically did get an 8 seed matchup, but the quality of the team that they played, their butts by a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, if it does stay at 12, and I agree with you, Zach, it'll probably go to 16. 12 is a good number. I don't like it,
but I'm guessing it'll
I'm
go to 16.
guessing it'll go to 16 too. But yeah,
Well,
with that,
you guys want to talk about the biggest bowl game in the off season, or not the off season? Sorry, in the bowl season, which is clearly the Pop-Tart Bowl.
I mean, yes, I do love seeing live mascots get murdered.
I was
on
gonna say,
TV.
I was gonna say this is the only thing I wanted to say about the Pop-Tart Bowl is that obviously if Nebraska has the greatest year ever and gets to the playoff, great, awesome. I am not expecting that. I'm saying it right now. I'm not expecting that. However, if we can't have that, but we do have a much better year next year, I want to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl. That's it.
Unfortunately, I do think that the conference tie-in for that does not bode well for Nebraska.
I know,
because
but
I think
feel
it's ACC and Big 12.
I know, but I feel like they need to open that up. I'm just saying. I think the Pop-Tart Bowl has become almost a cultural phenomenon at this point, where it needs to be just. I don't know about a Premier Bowl necessarily, but it's got to be in the running for It's got to be just because Iowa State and who did they play? Miami. That was just a great game too.
There was no defense. It was back and forth offense.
Yeah, it was a track meet, but I mean, it was still just a fun game to watch. And so that's what I want. I want just a good, whatever type of football game, as in just a good football game to watch. And then I want to see. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong. The winning team got to pick which mascot got toasted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they went with cinnamon roll.
Yeah, it wasn't a good choice.
Wild berry was the correct answer there. First of all,
I agree.
Or the chocolate. I like the chocolate fudge. Whatever they want to call it.
Hot
not
fudge
the hot
sundae,
fudge,
though.
but it's like the whole chocolate. Yeah, it's not the hot fudge one. It's just
that was the third one, wasn't it? It was wild berry, hot fudge sundae, and then
I think
cinnamon roll, wasn't it?
It wasn't.
Right,
no, it wasn't strawberry. Strawberry was last year. They did bring the dead carcass of the strawberry back, though.
Pop-Tart Bowl flavors. Let's see what this. Oh, good Lord. Here we go. This year's Pop-Tarts Bowl will feature 3 edible mascots on the sidelines with their flavors consisting of frosted wild berry, frosted hot fudge sundae, and frosted cinnamon roll. I was going to say, because I kept seeing sprinkles. I was like, I know that's hot fudge sundae, which that one, whatever, throw that out. But cinnamon roll? What the hell?
Yeah, wasn't a good choice by him.
I mean, cinnamon roll as a Pop-Tart is probably good, but out of all three of those, you didn't go with wild. Oh, anyway, not the point.
Not the point.
Not the point. I'm going to get fired up about that over the Husker game. With that, though, your Bad Boy Mowers bowl game champions, the Nebraska Cornhuskers,
hang the banner.
Finally bringing us to not only winning a bowl game since, what was it, 2016?
Yes, whatever Mike Riley did.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to whatever Mike Riley last did.
So that, but then also giving us our first winning season in, I think, almost 10 years, or if it was 10 years. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10 years, but basically
it was
a
the
decade.
2016 season where we went like 9-4.
Oh yeah, okay.
And
so
we didn't even win the bowl game that year. It was the previous year where we went 5-7 and went to that Foster's Farmer Bowl.
Yes, that's right.
Because the 9-4, we went to the Music City and got butt kicked by Tennessee.
Yep.
So
but anyway, Nebraska not only played a bowl game, they won the bowl game, but they won it in by far the most Nebraska way they possibly could have.
Yeah, they technically did win a one-score game when it should not have been a one-score game
at all.
No, it should not have been.
it was 20-2.
It's been a minute, so we'll probably leave the segment out this time around. But if we were doing Fire into the Sun, it would 100% be Ed Foley.
And who at the time of this recording is still technically on the staff. I know his contract ended at the end of last year, December 31st. We have not heard of any news of a new contract, no new contract, so on and so forth. Don't know when we'll hear about it, but if you listen to Rule's post-game comments after that, he said, for 2025, I want a complete overhaul and new look for the special teams, which if you read through the lines,
would indicate.
Yeah, that would indicate that Foley would probably not be there. And we've seen part of that so far. They went out, they got a portal punter, they went out and got a portal long snapper. You assume your place kicker is probably going to be John Hull or Tristan Alvano again. They're probably going to have a Duke out camp. So they went out and they've got the necessary pieces on the special teams. It's now the coach aspect that we're all kind of waiting on. And who knows when we'll hear anything about that. But yeah, like you said, Zach, that the most Nebraska way to win a game by almost losing it.
Well, so just like quick recap, just for me, first half, great. I was like, dang, they're doing it. Like they're playing well. There were a couple things I'm like, nah, they could do this a little bit better. But I kind of chalked that up to they had the extra practices, but they hadn't played for basically a month. So it's like, probably a bit of rust, whatever, no big deal. And not only that, we were seeing a bunch of new faces on the team, offensive and defensively, which I was really excited to see how well people that weren't on they were on the team, but they weren't necessarily playing throughout a lot of the year.
Right.
How they
stepped up. A lot of the
redshirt
guys.
And I mean, I know like in theory on paper, we were supposed to win that game, but we definitely looked like the overall better team, even with people that we hadn't really seen. So, but then that second half,
little sketch.
I mean, I will say it did finally, that last 5 or 6 minutes, it felt like, okay, Nebraska finally was like, all right, take a damn breath, calm down. Let's get it done. I actually think that the play that did it was Dylan's admittedly late slide.
You can debate about that. Yes, it was a late slide. And I mean, yes, it still was a flag because you did hit a sliding defender.
The rule does state if you hit a sliding offensive player or a player that's given themselves up,
yes,
you have to flag it. I get it, but also like
he did slide late.
Like, yeah, whether he meant to do that on purpose or not. But the reason that I call that the play that I kind of think finally flipped the switch in that fourth quarter for them was because as you saw, Dylan gets up and just gets in the dude's face and it starts the giant tussle in the middle of the field. That was, I mean, not that we didn't see fire from the team, but it was just nice to see not just fire from the team, but fire from the quarterback. It's like, I felt like that was a moment where Dylan not only said, yeah, I like playing for Nebraska, but he was like, I love doing this. And I'm probably reading far too much into it. He was probably just in the moment of the game. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, yep, that's a kid that loves football. And he feels like he's comfortable even playing with Nebraska, who is not the Georgia, who is not this and that. So
right. That's I agree. I love that. I know most people are like, well, you don't love it from the aspect of like he probably could have gotten a dead ball on sportsmanlike flag on that, just for what he did. And so I get why people are like, oh, you don't want to encourage him to do that because he'll get a flag penalty for it. But at the same time, I love that, like you said, Zach, he got up there, he stuck up for himself. He was like letting the guy like, hey, that's a late hit on me, don't do it. Albeit that it was a late slide, and he probably did coax him into it, but nonetheless, just showing the emotion and the passion for that too.
If that game taught me anything about Dylan, though, first thing
He's a
he needs to work
competitor.
on this offseason, but he also needs to work on when to slide.
Yeah.
The amount of times that he slid this year where he's like, I need 2 yards and slides half a yard short. Like, dude.
He did it. It wasn't that exact play, but there was a play prior to that where it was like a 3rd and 1, and he did slide like a yard and a half short. But I think there was a flag for like defensive holding or a hands to the face. So something that negated it, and it didn't matter anyways, but it would have been like 4th and 1 because he had the first down, but then slid like a yard and a half short, or at least started to slide that short. So yeah,
I remember Jett texting me, or no, he sent me a Snapchat video. It's like, dude, I love Dylan. Actually, I'll let Jett speak on that because do you remember that?
I do. It's just like he's a good player and he's trying to slide past the first, but every fucking time it's like 2 yards short. And then every time he gets on a knee and points towards the first down when it's never is.
right.
That is
so
funny.
You just lose so much fucking swag that you think you have. And it's just annoying. I had a rant about it, but we won. And fuck.
We won. I think my favorite story that came out of that is we didn't know about this till Matt Rule's press conference at the end of the game was just kind of the backstory of what Ramir has gone through for this year. It was big to let him get the hometown kid get a touchdown that game. He ran for 50 plus yards, got the game sealing 10-yard run at the end of the game too on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Where he kind of got stopped and then he kept chugging through, got the extra like 7-8 yards to seal the game for Nebraska. Scored a touchdown in his return. I don't know if it's his home. I think he grew up in Brooklyn. I think that's what they said, but somewhere in the New York area he's from. But then, Matt Rule said after the game in the press conference that Ramir had lost his mother earlier in the season. I think October, November-ish time. And so he was trying to deal with that while trying to play football. And, Matt Rule was obviously like, yeah, go be with your family, like go home, so on and so forth. And Ramir stayed with the team, being a team player. So it was a really cool story just to, you don't know any of that till after, but, in his final game in a Husker uniform, his final game in the college collegiate level, he scores a touchdown to help you guys win the game, gets the game winning run to seal the game and get the first down until Nebraska can kill the clock. But things like that is, Rule said why he loves the college level. It's why he coaches his kids. That's why he wants to be a college coach. Is, you get moments like this where, kind of a redemption story for Ramir. He's been hurt most of his time at Nebraska, but he can come to a bowl game, get your first win, get a touchdown, get to celebrate. He's probably not going to go on any, NFL pro type stuff, but to end your college level on an MVP, he did get the MVP of the bowl game too.
I was just going to ask if he did get the MVP, which was well deserved.
He did get the MVP. So really cool story with that. And then obviously the other running back, our RB1 for next year, Emmett Johnson. He's just a shifty dude. Some of those runs where he cuts back where like there's no hole at all. All of a sudden he cuts back to the other side of the line and takes off for 15 more yards. So Emmett's going to be really fun. Obviously next year, I'm glad that, he withdrew his name from the portal, but it's going to be fun next year. And, the list of transfers that we could talk about that have coming in next year, definitely on the offensive side. 3 to 4 wide receivers that are coming in. A couple Kentucky guys, California guy, and somebody else, I believe.
And I figured
So
we'd do like a recap of that kind of before
Yeah.
before like the spring game or something. Just be like,
Yeah.
because who knows how many of them are actually
they're
gonna
stay.
stay
Yeah.
here. So
And that's, I mean, that's going to be the big talking point throughout the offseason is getting down to 105 before the start of next season. Because like I said, it's whenever the first college game kicks off next season, at the end of August, but you have to get to your roster limit of 105 guys by then. So Rule knows that. I mean, you're going to probably go through spring ball with a roster, and then when the second transfer portal window opens, probably going to see more guys that go into that after spring ball of roster that Nebraska's going to have to make cuts somewhere. And Rule knows that, but just kind of a more bracing for everybody is expect guys to, continue to leave because Nebraska has to dwindle down their roster before the next season. So some of these portal guys that they get might also leave at the same time. Just because
we still
go
got
through spring ball.
We also have that signing day in February, don't we?
I believe so.
So, or I think it's February. I could be wrong on the date, but so we still have incoming freshmen that have yet to sign too.
Yeah, and I think they're up to 12 portal additions now. I think the recruiting class that they had this past signing day, like 3 weeks ago, was like 20 guys. So I mean that's right there, 30 plus guys that are incoming for next year already. And I mean, yes, obviously you're losing guys to the portal, you're graduating seniors, so on and so forth. But you still got to cut guys somewhere. But yeah, it's gonna be wrapping up the bowl game. It was a fun bowl game. Besides the special teams portion, which to no surprise, I'm glad that chapter is closed, and hopefully it'll be closed forever on Ed Foley. Rule makes
actually, yeah. When you go back and look at it, though, offense and defense looked damn good. And I mean, I know Boston College was not a world beater, but we won a game that we were supposed to, which Nebraska hasn't been able to say for a while. So,
and who knows if that's what John Butler's defense is going to look like next year? Because obviously you're playing this game with Ty Robinson and Ash Hutchmaker, two guys that will obviously not be back next year. And a lot of Nebraska's secondary and linebackers were guys that we probably will see next year, but definitely on the defensive front side, like you're obviously not going to have those two front guys next year. So it might be. I don't know if it'll be a completely new defense look next year or anything like that, but probably, a very, very, very small sample size of what John Butler might do on defense next year. And I expect the defense just to take a step back next year, just off one, who you're losing on defense, and two, you don't know what you're going to get with John Butler in terms of what he wants to run and everything. So obviously,
as long as we're like, I think as long as we're like Big Ten average, we'll be fine, because I think
Rule
our
knows
offense
that
really
too.
needs to take a step next year.
And I think Rule knows that too. He's very confident that his defense is going to be there. It's now getting the offense up to par. So if you take a step back on defense next year, but then take a step forward on offense, you can kind of mitigate those points that you're going to give up on defense because you got Hogo running the show. Dylan, hopefully improving in the offseason when he goes back and works with the Mahomes quarterback coach.
Speaking of, real quick, Dana, the offense that he ran for the bowl game, outside of maybe a couple, and I'm not calling them questionable calls. It's just more like, I don't know if if I was running the offense, if I would have run that there kind of thing, but that happens. That's, one play doesn't always dictate a game, but the way we were playing, one play in certain cases was not going to dictate how the rest of the game went, on offense at least. But his offense just looked a lot more fluid, a lot more explosive in certain areas. And I was just like, okay, I'm really excited to see what we get now that we're also getting other people from, the Kentucky receivers and stuff. So
definitely more long ball shots that game that I expected.
What does Nate keep saying? 150-yard bombs.
Yeah, Nate's 150-yard bomb offense, which we didn't see a lot of them in the bowl game. So, I mean, most of them were to Ja'Cory.
They were in a baseball stadium. So, honestly, that was probably the only thing that is guaranteed is that I think Nebraska played on the worst field conditions out of all the bowl games. It was so bad.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
Jett, you
wrapping
got
up
any
that
last?
season.
I was gonna say now we can head to our picks, but I was gonna say, Jett, you got any last minute thoughts on Nebraska or the bowl game or anything?
Bow tie
Not
on the
many.
2024 season for Nebraska football.
Not many. I was happy that we won. We did the thing. Haven't experienced that in my lifetime a whole lot. Talk about the past being the glory days. I ain't never seen that shit. So glad we got a bowl game. Glad we're starting to actually play the game correctly and win. Looking bright for next year. We're looking bright for the future.
Right.
I think it's gonna be a good time. All right,
Yeah.
boys. It's like we kind of said at the top. It's gonna be a bit shorter of an episode, so we're gonna get out of here early. Not really, but
Kind of.
But on to our picks. Let me get the sheet pulled up so that way I can write them down. But I guess if you guys got any, go for them. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to sit and think a little bit.
I will go with my bold pick is I will say that the Chiefs cover, but Denver outright wins.
Damn it, you took mine.
Just because
I was gonna say that.
10.5, regardless if the Chiefs are playing their backups, is still a lot of points to cover. And Denver very well might go into that game and win by 2+ touchdowns. But it's regardless, you can still have the same pick, Zach, but it's still
That's no fun.
It's still Kansas City, whether they're playing their backups or not. I mean, it's still a team that Denver has not historically had a lot of success since Patrick Mahomes has come into the league for Kansas City. And Denver's going to be, obviously, they're playing with a lot on the line. Sometimes that might cause them to press too much and push too much and, over perfect things or anything like that. Regardless, 10.5, even though they're at home and Kansas City's playing their backups, is a lot of points. Denver still will outright win the game, but I think Kansas City does cover the 10.5.
Jett, you got one? Or is it my turn?
Go for it. I haven't found one yet.
Okay. I'm going to say. Actually, you know what? This is going into next. It's a little early. Maybe I'll save that for next week. I'm gonna go and say I think Washington is a 6-point favorite over Dallas, and I know Washington is probably not going to be playing all of their guys, but I don't know. I think Washington blows out Dallas more than 6 points. I think Dallas is just kind of gonna finish out the year and hope for the best. But I mean, here's kind of my thought process with this, with how terrible my picks have been this year. I'm just gonna take that pick and then hope that Dallas blows out Washington and messes up the seeding, because I don't think Washington can necessarily just sit everybody. They can, but they got to get up to a pretty good lead before they do it, because they want to be, better seated, I think. So they could absolutely goof it up if they lose to Dallas. So I'm going to say Washington beats them by more than 6. So,
okay. Jett, if you're still looking for a pick real quick.
we do have Nate's, I guess.
Yeah, we do have
You
Nate's
can do
too.
Nate's. I mean, I got a dumb one. Was it
going to be a bold or a sicko pick?
It's going to be a pretty dumbass pick, but,
Sounds like a sicko pick to me.
That's what I was thinking.
I just have a slight feeling Jacksonville can beat Indianapolis. I don't like the Colts. I like Jaguars.
Okay.
Feeling it.
The Mac Jones train.
Tickets as low as $10.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that play. NFL's weird, man. That's not a bad. I don't hate that one. I'll take it.
I'll take it for show.
Jacksonville, and they're 5-point dogs.
Is there?
Cool. What was Nate's that he sent us?
So Nate said the Vikings to cover and win.
All right. I'm just
I'm
gonna
guessing I don't know if that's his bold or his sicko pick. I'm only guessing that's his bold pick because his other pick was Nebraska ball does not cover against UCLA. And I think that spread is only like a point for Nebraska. So that's a very much push game, but probably push for UCLA. Even though Nebraska is a 1-point favorite.
Okay, yeah. That's how we're gonna do it. So what is the Vikings line?
3 to Detroit.
Oh. I feel like just saying Vikings outright win then just
I mean, yeah. You're basically +3. Yeah, I just don't that's how he worded it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. He then said Nebraska ball
Does not cover.
does not cover.
I'm looking it up to verify. I'm pretty positive it's just a point for Nebraska ball.
Oh, it's a point. I have +1 then.
Yeah, they're -1 favorites, but it's pretty much a push game.
Oh, they're favorited. Okay.
Just
I thought you said
they're at home.
I thought you said they were behind. Oh, that makes sense. All right. Well, while he's looking that up, Jett, you got a sick pick?
I honestly do not. I ain't got much. Give me a sick pick. Cleveland's beating Ravens. You heard it here first.
I was kind of looking at that one too.
Well, it was the first one at top of the page. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Do you want them that they win or just that they cover the 20 and a half?
They're gonna win. They're gonna kick their fucking ass, buddy.
All right. I like it.
I'll do my sick pick. Jets to beat the Dolphins. Jets are butt right now, but so are the Dolphins.
Let's see. And that one's what's that one at?
I think 1.5 to Miami. So -1.5.
Oh, the Jets. Jets minus. Okay, Stu Feiner. Jets.
Jets. Speaking of things, possible NBA trade deadlines, I know that we were talking about Jimmy Butler earlier in the year. They interviewed him, I guess, his post-game press conference after Miami played. I don't remember exactly what the question was, but he said, in terms of whether he could get his joy back in Miami, Jimmy Butler said probably not.
Come to Phoenix, baby.
Sounds like Jimmy Butler will probably be what I mean. I think we knew that for a couple weeks now, but that just kind of
I think it's
secured it more that he probably will be traded at Miami before the deadline. So that might be the first big blockbuster trade that we see for the NBA this year is Jimmy Butler going to wherever.
All right, my sick pick to wrap this up then, and I hate it, which is why I'm going with it. Chicago covers over Green Bay.
That's
10 points.
Gross, Zach. Why would you do that?
Chicago's done weird things this year. But I think for whatever reason they're going to have like this weird last game that's undeserved, and they're not going to win. They're not going to win. They're just going to be like a touchdown behind or something.
Man, that is a sick pick. That's gross.
I mean, I'm not. I am not. I'm not even comfortable saying it, but here we are. So,
but here we are.
And here we are. So, all right, boys.
Jett, thank you for filling in for old Nathaniel.
Thanks for having me, like always.
All right. Well, with that, has anybody got any last minute thoughts in the sports world before we sign off?
Nada.
All right.
Scurs by 90s. Always.
Scurs by 90 always. Thank you to Jett and Andy for joining me, and for you, our listeners, for tuning in yet again. Thank you for tuning into the Sportsball Podcast, your source for sports, the number one rated sports podcast in the world. Don't fact check us.
And please find the Patreon link.
And please find the Patreon link. I'm very hungry. And then with that, we'll see you next time.